My name's Pamula Furness. I was born here in 1961, roughly on Kettering, and I've lived here most of my life. Escaped to London, came back, because you're on elastic if you're born here. One of those years when a lot of stuff has been dug out from inside me, stuff that I've never spoken about really very clearly or openly, and I thought it was probably time, especially with the rise in domestic abuse and the rise of women, the power of women now being taken a little more seriously. It's all to do with that, really. My story is called Midnight Escape. It's about, obviously, a victim escaping a terrible situation. And what I want people to take from this is maybe look at people who are a little less well-dressed, less clean, less well-fed, wonder perhaps why they're like that, rather than vilify them for it. Just accept that there may be stuff going on behind closed doors that you don't know anything about. Maybe keep your ears open for crying children. Crying children, they're everywhere, but when it goes on for a long time, there's something going on. I think we should look out for one another, especially girls. I think we get a lot of rubbish thrown at us. This is called Midnight Escape. You'll see why. It was the first time I'd ever tried to manipulate anyone, and it took bullets. I was just 13 years old, and had never dared to speak so openly or forcefully before, and certainly not to my mum. But she was inebriated, enjoying her night out with the girls. She met up with her girlfriends whenever she could, whilst our father, Dave, was at work. This time doing nights at Corby's gigantic steelworks. So for the past few weeks, she woke me up after he'd gone. She was ready to go out, leaving me downstairs on the sofa to babysit. She was never out for long, just an hour or two, but the difference it made. She began to have a little lift in her step again, a little joy on her face. He noticed. He knew something was happening, but he didn't know what. Of course, he suspected her of cheating with another man, but she wasn't. He picked a fight with her on the way back from town one day, actually punching and pushing her into the path of an old man coming in the opposite direction. The old guy just tutted and went on his way, and as we all looked on. That was the day I called the police, reporting my own father for his mistreatment of my man. The wonderful police force sent a car fairly quickly, and, as Dave stood directly behind her on the doorstep, asked my mum if she was all right. The cuts, bruises and tears on her face, her physical stance or his hand on her shoulder didn't include me, apparently. For years, my mum put up with his violence and abuse towards her, us kids, all our pets, none of which survived, by the way. Him having actually practiced by torturing and killing animals since he was a boy. The poverty and humiliation, and I reckon we'd all had enough. So did she, it would seem. And it was not long after this that she stayed out a little later that particular Friday night. I hoped then that she would not return, and that this toxic setup could be broken. So when she did come dutifully back, I couldn't help but let it all out. Her face as she came in the door said it all. The joyful light went out and she visibly sagged. She didn't want to come back, she said, her eyes surveying the savage room with its broken furniture and ragged curtains. So I told her, don't. Just don't. She looked shocked. I was usually so quiet, so eager to please. This can't go on, I told her. At this, she began to cry. She was worried about his kids, whatever would happen to us. He'd never let her go, and she was terrified of him, as we all were. No time to waste then. Better go now, before he gets back. We'll be fine. We're kids, and there's lots of family around to help care for us. This had happened before, when she tried to leave before, but he's always tracked her down, beaten her into submission one way or another, and the nightmare would begin again. Honestly, those people who insist that families should be kept together need to know what kind of family they're dealing with first. Breaking mine apart was the best thing that could have happened, and I still don't know where I got the nerve. She took the baby with her, and I reassured her that the rest of us would be okay. The sudden shocking stillness after she left. Oh no, the sudden stillness was a cold shock, but I felt such a sense of calm and relief as I waited then for him. I felt invincible. He was not happy the following morning when he found me asleep on the sofa. In he came, all annoyed and huffy, demanded to know where my mum was. Gone, I told him. I couldn't tell him where, but wouldn't have anyway, even if I'd known. He was so angry. How dare she abandon him? She'd pay for this. He was going to beat the living daylights out of her. He was going to track her down and kill her. Leaving him in a house full of brats, bitch. Somehow I remained deadpan, gleeful inside that we won, that he didn't know it was me who persuaded her to go. Me! That thought still delights me. Over the following days and weeks he stewed on his anger, and when his queries of mutual friends came back empty, he began to give up on finding her and started efforts to replace her. My mother's leaving had an effect on my eldest brother too. Her defiance gave him the courage to face Dave now, putting his fists up at the next time he lunged for him. The utter shock as a 34-year-old father of 6 cowered in front of his 12-year-old son. It was a beautiful moment that signalled our freedom from terror. He still lashed out and continued with the emotional and other abuses, but not when my brother was around. Eventually our father, Dave, found another woman, this time someone just as sour-faced and bitter as himself, and we were indeed eventually farmed out to various relatives. Mum too managed to move on, but her terror of him never left her. Me, feel nothing for him. Doesn't frighten me. He's a nothing, a non-entity, and although he thinks he's gotten away with all the terrible things he did, he's so wrong. After a life of the after effects of being the child of a violent, narcissistic, incestuous and misogynistic bully, I'm at last getting my voice back. The one that Dave terrified out of me when I was 6. The one that was silenced in me by an uncle when I was 5. And Dave again when I was 13. But those are stories for another time. So many after effects of being reared as a captive victim, not realising that such things were not normal, not socially acceptable. My mum's bravery back then, listening to a fellow victim and making a run for it at last after so many years of abuse at her own mother's hands, then Dave's, she's always been my hero in that respect. It may have taken many years of assault and toxic relationships to understand where it all started and how to stop it, but now that I can see, I'm unstoppable. I feel it's my duty to stand and shout for the victims of domestic violence, the children born to these inhumane bullies. Lord knows they can't do it themselves, and too many don't make it out alive.
Yeah, I think it worked quite well. I don't think anybody laughed particularly hard at what I was saying. I'll probably do it again, given half the shots, if anybody's willing to listen to me drivel on. But once the nerves were settled, it seemed to go all right. I'd recommend it to anybody. Give it a go. You never know.